Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skiddy, and Malley for the Insight NBA show.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Insight Fantasy Sports Network. I am your host today, Skiddy IFS, where you can find me on Twitter and all the good stuff. And I'm joined today by the man. Thank God you're back in a singlet. T-shirts just don't look right on you. The big fella at Live My Fantasy on X. Malley, how are you, brother?
Mate, and I'm rocking my glasses, big nose, mustache combination like you get from the joke shop. So, yeah, trying something a little bit different here. I think people might take me a bit more seriously this way.
You reckon that if you have glasses on, people are going to go, hang on, it increases his intelligence, and I'm going to...
Yeah. And maybe if this goes well, I might incorporate a lab coat or something into it, even though there's probably not a lot of science in this. You know what I was just thinking? This is a random thought. Is this year I'm looking at the preseason games and noticing that there's not a lot of non-NBA teams in there. Like usually the Shanghai Sharks get a run. Usually we have 3 NBL teams. Do you know why that is? Why did only the Breakers come across?
No, I'm not sure why it was only the Breakers. And we got the team that played, the Spanish team that played the Blazers today as well that went down. I haven't seen many others.
Spanish.
I don't know. But I just
Jewish.
Honestly, mate, I took a swing and I just didn't want to insult anyone, I guess. But either way, but it is what it is, mate. I'll tell you what, I didn't have a full dive into it today. I didn't get to watch all the games. I was pretty busy working. But what I did get to see was, and I made sure I spent time, was to see Lonzo Ball back on the court in 2.5 years. And you just love to see it. He comes out, hits a 3. He had a bingo as well, where he hit a 3-point, rebound, assist, steal, block. Oh, it looked good for Lonzo. Just happy to see him back out there for the Chicago Bulls.
And you know that they're going to be pretty easy on him at the beginning. And I wouldn't expect a lot out of him this season, but it was just nice to see him back. And it was good to see in the same game Randall get a run with his new team. What it is, like 16, 6 and 5 or something. Yep, basically nice. Randall things in that amount of time in 20-odd minutes. So that's good. That's a good sign that he's just going to do what he did.
The assists that he was generating as well, they were more than happy to have him as a high post hub as well, which is really good to see and positive for people that have drafted Julius Randle. But today, Malley, we're going to get stuck into the small forward tiers. We haven't done that. We've seen the point guards. We've seen the shooting guards. You can go back and check out those videos on our YouTube. And basically what we're doing here with tiers is we don't like the idea of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 when you're drafting, right? You can have that for certain different types of players, but it's better off to have them grouped in a tier list so where you can go, okay, what type of player do I want? And you don't feel too bad about reaching too far because this is the type of player that you want. So we like to clump them into the tiers. We can do that, Malley. But before we get stuck into it, we're going to give a shout out to our day ones. That's right. It's a standard squeeze. Use promo code IFS15 for 15% off everything. That's hat, merchandise, T-shirts, jumpers. They do it a lot there. All these beautiful 4-in-1s. And Malley, these are the creme de la creme. The chef kiss. Keep your coffee warm in the morning and beer hot. Beer cold at night, coffee warm in the morning. And I'll tell you, Malley, when I say that I use this bastard every single day, I ain't lying. That's coffee straight, beer after that, mate.
Yeah, my missus uses ours. I don't drink coffee or anything fun, so I might be the only teacher in the entire, at least on this continent that doesn't drink coffee. I'm already too white as it is. But, she uses it, and she said it's a good bit of equipment.
That's fantastic, mate. And what else is a good bit of equipment is our big draft board. And I'm telling you right now, mate, it's getting closer to the day where you got to get all your drafts done and finalized. We got 5 or 6 days until the NBA season starts up, where we get Boston versus the Knicks. And I cannot wait for that, Malley. So get that. It's got all of our draft picks. It's got everything that you need to be able to help you on a draft day. It's only $30, so piece of piss. Thank you very, very much. Take that when you want. But, Malley, let's get stuck into small forward tiers, mate. You want to run me through it? Start off S tier. We're going no one. Cleveland LeBron is the best that we had. But this year for fantasy, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other guys who in the past would have been there. I mean, at different stages in his career, KD, when he's played, I guess when he played small forward.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dead spot, and ironically, it seems to be a position that, I mean, you called me out the other night when we were doing our mock, saying that I just really didn't have a small forward, and it's a position that goes under the radar a lot, and then you really realise you've got to scramble later in the end. Your guards do guard things, your bigs do big things, which are very important in fantasy, and then a lot of the time, unless you're a great defense bringer, at least on the stat sheet end of it, it's hard to find a position on fantasy teams for these small forwards.
Yeah, exactly right. And we're obviously going to state as well, we're classifying off ESPN. So KD is listed as a power forward first. So that's why he's not in the small forward tiers. Otherwise, he'd be right up here. But we do go into our A tiers. Malley, if you want to run me through why these guys are in A tier, are they closer to S? Are they closer to B? You tell me. We have Jason Tatum. We have Scotty Barnes, Paul George, LeBron James, and Kawhi Leonard. Run me through, Malley. What are you thinking here when you're coming into the A tier, guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's arguments that Jason Tatum can be up there, but there's nights where he plays wonderfully, and there's nights because the team is so strong that sometimes he gets forgotten about. I guess the reason he never has a bad night is because he can do so much across the board. So even the nights that his shot isn't landing, he seems to get rebounds. If he's not getting rebounds, that's because he's getting assists. If he's not getting assists, that's because he's playing hard on the defensive end, depending on whoever his assignment is on the night. So he's one of those lucky guys where you take someone maybe who's in a similar position in a different tier, like a Trae Young, who, if his shot's not going, he can maybe get the assist going, but that's really all he's got to fall back on, where at least Jason Tatum is a man with multiple skills, and that's valuable for fantasy, but not quite that S tier. He's not going to be a guy who is a make or break on your team. He is strong. He's a certain A tier guy. Looking down that list, you had go back to that list so I can have a look.
Scotty
Scotty
Barnes.
He's had a wonderful preseason. It'll be very interesting when they get the rest of their starters back. I mean, he's been able to do everything because he's basically, besides Pirtle, been the man about town. Same with what's his name, Dick. It'll be interesting to see how he plays as well after. But yeah,
old Stiffy.
Yeah, but he's another guy who a little bit like Jason Tatum, not quite as strong a scorer by any means, but the assists are stronger, the rebounds are stronger, and the nights that he doesn't score, he can do other things. And you're right, he can get those defensive numbers. So yeah, I like these guys in the A tier where they're obviously very strong players and they're not one-trick ponies.
Yep.
They can do a little bit of everything. Yep. What about the rest of the list? Who are you thinking about?
Yeah, so I'll quickly just touch on the Barnes and Tatum debate, right? So Tatum, you get him because of the scoring. And there's, he's one of the best scorers in the NBA, so that's why you put him up there. But he was 15th per game last year. Wasn't even first-round value. And other than the points and the threes, right, Scotty Barnes was actually better than Jason Tatum in pretty much every category aside from free throw percentage, which is a big indication there. So I 100% agree with you there, mate. The rest of A tier, we've got Paul George. Let's just preface this first, right? These guys are A guys. Like Tatum and Barnes are probably definitely the A guys. And then the other guys, I'd say, are probably maybe around the A minus, where you can get them a little bit later on in drafts. LeBron obviously does everything, but we're worrying about the age. But he's still LeBron. He's still going to do what he does. Maybe just bring it down a little bit. But still, you'd be happy with 24, 8, and 6. Like, that is absolutely fine from LeBron James. Paul George, hyperextended knee now. In Philly, but it's still the best situation you're going to find yourself in for Paul George for a long time. He is a guy that can generate very, very high amount of steals. And then we have Kawhi Leonard as well. Kawhi probably not playing back-to-back. Apparently, the Clippers have now come out and said that he hasn't even started doing preseason work or getting himself ready to start. So that's a bloody another worry. You can get Kawhi in the 50s now. He was 6th per game last year, Malley. 6th. And he played, 68 games? I'm going to 68 games. And he was absolutely unbelievably good last year. Paul George is now gone. Usage is back to him. So when he does play, it can come up. I think he smacks 50 overall as well. I feel like he can get better than that. I'll happily take a go at Kawhi at 55. Yes, it is a very high injury risk, but it is probably him and Porzingis are the two like injury guys where you can go, hey, these guys can return very, very solid fantasy value. It's worth the gamble in my eyes.
The game is an absolute beast. Maybe a better pickup in a different situation. 9-cap probably is a little bit, head to head is probably a little bit of a tough situation for him because there's going to be so many games where you don't have him. He deserves to be on the A-tier list. He has the value that those other guys have or more. If he was healthy, I think obviously he'd be challenging the top two guys on that list for their role. But we've had to take things into account. Him playing 50 games seems a very high expectation for this season. We'll see how he goes. It's hard to trust anything that comes out in the media, but we started everything got a bit shaky and a bit scary when he just suddenly wasn't with the Olympic team out of nowhere. And that was all kind of weirdly hush-hush, and the writing was a little bit on the wall then, and I think that's where some people started to get a little bit nervous. I wasn't that worried at the time, but obviously as things have progressed and we've learned more about his injury and like his recovery time and the fact that he's not going to be starting the season, it's put panic in me. And yes, I won't have him anywhere near what he's worth. He's worth sixth. He's worth the first round, but he's amazing how much lower he'll be than that this year.
Yep, and Tyrone Lue's come out and said that it will be most likely Norm Powell and Terrence Mann will be the starters in place of him. We go into the B tier, guys. Malley, you've only got 3 here that you're finding in the B tier form, and you're liking the look of Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, newly Sacramento Kings DeMar DeRozan, and Franz Wagner. Talk me through it, mate.
I think it's 3 guys who can never seem to hit a lot of threes. Wagner had a shocker of a year last year, but his preseason hasn't been too bad. It's funny because you got those first 2 guys in DeMar and Jimmy who are coming into the twilight years of their career, and then you got Franz Wagner who's kind of going the other way. So it shan't be long. This is a bit of a passing of the ships in the night type situation where right at this moment, this snapshot in time, their value is reasonably similar. It was good to see. I know one of the things that Franz, besides the fact that he wasn't hitting, actually his threes were going in. He probably just didn't take as many as he needed to, and he just seemed so passive. Like especially compared to his brother. Like you look at Mo, and he's crunching, he's cheering, he's excitable. He doesn't obviously have the skill level that his brother does, but it's just younger brother syndrome, I guess. But he's still a valuable player. He's still, I think, worthy of being in that B tier. A little bit like your Paul George, your Barnes. He's a guy who can do a little bit of everything, and he's the same on the nights where he doesn't distribute the ball. He seems to get his scoring on. He'll get random defensive stats every now and again. He's also on a team where having Suggs as your point guard, he not really being a true point guard, he's kind of a defensive shooting guard in a point guard position where he still gets plenty of assists. He racks up the assists. His percentages are always kind of nice, like Tobias Harris range. Just be nice to get more free throws, get to the line a little bit more often. But he seems to be, at least in that 2 games ago, he seemed to be a little bit more aggressive on that front. He was aggressive he's one of those guys too, a little bit like his mate Tice. When they play for the Olympic team, they're gods. They're like so passionate about Germany. And then when he's back in Orlando, he's a bit like, whatever. Like his heart's not in it. He's just doing this to pay the bills. Whereas when he's playing for the old Deutschland, he's going as hard as hammers, mate.
Bloody oath, mate. Yeah, he's definitely got the backing of the Germans there. I'm with you. I can say it. Franz he doesn't need much to be up and getting it right there. Like the points just need a little bit more, 20 points per game. That can go, if that goes up to 24, then he's right on line with where these other guys sit. And the lines aren't that far away from a couple of extra rebounds. As I said, a bit more points. The percentages are okay. A couple more defensive stats wouldn't hurt, and a little bit more assists. And I think it can be done. Yeah, you said Suggs being the point guard is the perfect one for him to be able to ball handle. I agree with you there. DeRozan, it could be up higher, but I feel like him down is just because of the new move in Sacramento. Usage, one ball makes it bloody hard. And Jimmy Butler is I think the big question mark is his availability. Other than that, we saw Jimmy 22 per game last year. He was fantastic. He was still racking up he was 28th. Still 1.3 steals. That's what Jimmy's best category is, along with his free throw percentage on high volume. Still the number one guy there. If he got his threes up, I can still see Jimmy being around, this B plus to A tier. And the other guy that I think could be in the B tier that I evaluate there is actually Jaylen Brown. The only reason why Jaylen Brown was worse fantasy-wise last year was because he'd take a lot of free throws, and for some reason he couldn't fucking hit them. He'd shoot them at 70% or something like that. It was horrid. But the amount of points that he is able to generate, and he's doing a bit more passing and steals, and his percentages are really nice as well. Turnovers are obviously low because he doesn't do as much with it. But the end of the threes are bloody nice for Jaylen Brown. So Brown was 77th per game last year. Percentages were nice from the field, but the free throw, as I said, was shit house on a massive volume, which really, really hurt him. The blocks were not there, but they came up a bit later on, 23 points per game. I reckon Brown could be around this B mark. I have probably B minus at the moment, but that's where I have him. Have you got anything else that you want to touch on for the B guys?
It's just saying there, talking about Jalen as well, it's hard for him and Tatum because they're on such a good team.
Yep.
And they seem to, when they play together, Jalen and Tatum, they don't often seem to have a big night together. It's either one of them goes off and the other one is just kind of there, or the other one goes off and the other one can sit. And I guess that's the beauty of their team, because they were so far ahead of everybody else last year. They didn't both need to have an extreme game to be able to and had to put up big numbers to be able to get a win. They coasted in a lot. Might be a little bit different this year with less Porzingis, especially to start the season, because he became quite an offensive piece while in his time at Boston last year. Mm-hmm. So maybe that might change a few things. And I've been interested to see, because I've been watching DeMar DeRozan pretty closely, because I picked him up in a league and I just want to see how he's going. And it feels like, besides maybe one of the games that they played, that he is sitting into that second usage position. And I know it's a preseason. They've got to see what they have in him and how he works. So they're probably going to put a little bit more of a spotlight on him. But yeah, Fox seems to have been the one who's taken the hit in the preseason. Domantas is still going nuts. He's actually made him look better. But I thought it would have kind of gone him, then Fox, and then down the way DeMar DeRozan. But it's so far hasn't really looked like that. So I'll be waiting to their season opener to really see how he fits into the pecking order.
Yeah, I 100% agree there with you, mate. And the one big caveat that I want to keep saying about DeMar is what people keep telling me. Oh, look, DeMar was top 30 last year, 31st he was last year. Malley, he was 31st in 37 minutes a night. He does not need to play that many. There are other players that can play in Sacramento. It's not the same in Chicago. But let's move along to the C guys. We've already touched on the Finals MVP, best player on the Celtics, Jaylen Brown. We can also have a look here at Miles, piece of crap Bridges, Mikal, good guy Bridges, Brandon Ingram, Brandon Miller, OG Anunoby. They are our C guys. One guy I will preface this here, I think Miles Bridges definitely a lot better with LaMelo Ball coming back. Mikal Bridges is iffy with the amount of players that are now in New York for usage-wise. Same as Brandon Ingram in New Orleans if he doesn't get traded, maybe to Sacramento. Brandon Miller is there at a peak value. Let me just reiterate that. Brandon Miller at peak. I would have him just probably a little bit under in my preferences, and maybe the same with OG as well, but his steals are bloody nice. Malley, talk to me through these C guys. What do you like? What do you hate?
And this is probably where the tiers come into their own, because you can compare a guy like Jaylen Brown with an OG Anunoby, who, for all intents and purposes, are very different players. OG, as you said before, has been able to have multiple 1.5, 2 steal seasons, and that consistency is always great. and then Jalen is such an offensive threat, and he has these big explosive nights where he really can't be stopped. And yeah, it's just a good way to kind of view things and compare players. And even though you'd be taking, in most cases, Jalen Brown far earlier than you'd be taking OG, their value is similar just because of their strengths and weaknesses. And then you're going to have those middling guys like both of the Bridges. They're in strange positions this year. Like McCall hasn't quite been. We knew that he wasn't going to be peak Brooklyn McHale Bridges, but he hasn't looked really close thus far to even our secondary option, which would have been the Suns McHale Bridges.
Yes.
So he's looked.
Hang on, Suns McHale Bridges was much better than Brooklyn McHale Bridges as well. Let's just say that as well.
You're right, and I mean that's probably another tier's perspective because they were just two different McHale Bridges. Exactly. One was a great scorer, well, not a great scorer. One did a lot of scoring, and the other one just was such high percentages, high defense, but a true 3-and-D type player, like in the old school sense of the term. So yeah, just seeing those guys, he hasn't been impressive, McHale Bridges, thus far in the preseason. He looks a little bit extra in that team, like they just really don't need him. He almost, in a way, and they won't do it, it'd almost just be better to have him run the second unit, just be a six man. I feel like something like that for him would be good, where
he's just but he's so good defensively. That's the thing. Him and OG out there, he's just cooked.
Yeah. And maybe it's one of those double negative type situations where you just maybe don't need both of them. I don't know. That when they kept OG and they got McHale, it led me to scratch my head a little bit. But he's probably in a more comfortable role for him this year, and he's definitely a C-tier guy. And Miles Bridges, we'll see. I would have thought that he'd take more of a hit this year, but he's, besides getting injured, looked to be more of a focal point for them than Brandon. So we'll see how that plays out too.
Yeah, that's the hard one where it's the Hornets, having two of those guys that both need the ball for usage-wise to be able to step up because they're not great defensive guys yet. So, I can definitely see that. I think it's a great point that you touched on with McKell and OG. OG was horrible fantasy-wise when he got to New York last year, but he was injured for majority of that time as well, or coming off the injury. So we can also just put it down to that, but still,
I just also think too, like we have a mindset as well where we go, Brandon Miller isn't a rookie anymore, like he's not a rookie anymore, he's a sophomore. And you're like, my guy's like, he's basically still a rookie. He hasn't even started his sophomore season yet. And, it's not like it's a click overnight, the end of the last season ends and this season begins, and he's gone through this metamorphosis. He's still slowly improving each game. And he's trying to find because he didn't get a lot of time playing with ball last year, he's got to figure that all out as well. So he is, I think, a guy that holds a lot of value on a team that's pretty middling like the Hornets are. So he's one that I, at the right price, always piques my interest.
Yep, I can agree with that as well, mate. D tier, let's crack into them, mate. We only got a couple here: Michael Porter Jr., Chris Middleton, Bradley Beal, and RJ Barrett. Now, obviously, with these guys, there is a lot more deficiencies that we are starting to see. Where do the positives come from, Malley? And walk me through what you're thinking with these D tier guys.
The positives in Michael Porter Jr. is we know his role. Nothing's really changed there this year in Denver. They're going to roll him out, do the same thing. I always have it in the back of my head that he's such a big injury dude, even though last year he played really well. I'm just always kind of on the edge of my seat thinking he's about to go again, which I don't know if that's fair or unfair.
81 games last year. He only missed one game last year.
Yeah. Which is completely nuts. But we'll see. We'll see how his season pans out. Bradley Beal, obviously in a much better position than he was this time last year. I think we don't have to think back too far to remember the Beal that was an all-star. Like he's it's still in there. He's still such a great player. And I think we're going to see more of that this year. So I don't know. I don't know if there's much of an argument that he's going to move out of the D tier into C, but I think out of this list here, he's got the highest hopes. Flick me back. Let me have a look at the other two. Who we got?
100%, mate. And as I've said as well on Bradley Beal, in the preseason, I know it's the preseason, but still, his willingness and his accountability on himself to have played hard defense and to show that he was playing defense really, really impressed me, because that was a knock that I thought last year about Phoenix. If they've got Beal completely committed to defensive purposes, oh yeah, then I can get around Beal at, pick 80 or so. That's sensational. But carry on. Chris Middleton, RJ Barrett.
Yeah, Chris Middleton, I am worried about. I just think he's a bit done. We've had some good times with Chris Middleton throughout our fantasy careers. I know he was pivotal on a team that I had 4 years ago. He was so impressive, and he's just a bit of a skeleton of a man now. Like his body's just really letting him down, and it's a shame because he was such an awesome fantasy dude, and he's just a good watch as well. So again, he's here because of his potential, and not really because of what we think he's going to be able to achieve this season. But I just feel too dirty putting him down any lower than this. But yeah, looking at that list, Bradley Beal is definitely a guy who I think has a decent chance of being able to move up to that tier above. The other three, I think, are pretty well here. RJ Barrett, we'll wait and see. He had a tumultuous year last year, just with his family stuff. So we'll see how having a bit more of a steady. It's a shame that he's starting with an injury. That's a little bit of a bummer. But I'm just I'm so eager to see how he and Quickly and
Scotty.
Thank you, Scotty, play together. That's just a big key waiting to unlock a pad for me. You just want to see what happens with him.
100%. Hey, look, RJ Barrett as well. His points are the reason why it's so valuable. Obviously his percentages really bloody hurt, but the points is why we're interested in RJ around there mainly. Let's go to E tier, Malley. We got Amen Thompson, Josh Hart, Denny Avdia, Trey Murphy, Bilal Coulibaly, Max Strus, Cam Johnson, Herb Jones. Now, Malley, I think there is one clear-cut guy that I believe could be bloody close to D tier already, and I feel like he's going to have a good chance of getting up there again, and that's Josh Hart. Starting shooting guard in New York, no one else to worry about there. Yeah, he's not going to shoot a lot, but I don't care. If he gets rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, good percentages, fine. Fine by me. Obviously, Trey Murphy as well. If Brandon Ingram goes, oh boy, sky's a limit for Trey.
I'm a little bit worried about Josh Hart. I just don't think, he's not going to do what he did at the end of last season. I don't think anyone's expecting him to do that. Otherwise, he'd be well inside the top 100, and he isn't. But he seems to be a guy this year. He's in a position where he's going to do so much for them on the court, and he's just not going to be able to rack up statistics. And stats are kind of, these counters are what we need in fantasy to have value. So I agree. Like, if we were just doing a tiers list outside of fantasy, he'd be higher than this because he helps teams win, and he's going to help this team win. And it's nice to see him back in the starting lineup. So obviously, irrespective of what his usage is this year, he's going to be better than what the outlook was before the trade. Now things are looking much better than him. I like Cameron Johnson as well. He went something like 16, 5 and 5 or something today. It was nice to see him have a well-rounded game. It's the injuries that seem to be getting his way. He had plenty of opportunity last year. It wasn't through lack of opportunity. I love Bilal. I think he's obviously put in a whole heap of work over the off-season. As I tweeted the other day, just going 6 from 6 at the line, getting to the line and being able to hit that many, especially when that wasn't his strong suit as a guard forward dude. He's been making and taking shots. He just looks different out there. I think a lot of people will be upset that we have Amen Thompson on this list. He's probably the one who has the highest ceiling on this list.
Oh, by far. Absolutely, mate. But game time. There's not much chance of him getting ahead of Fred VanVleet, Josh Green. They got Reed Shepherd there as well alongside with him. They got Dylan Brooks, and he's not getting ahead of that. Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason. Like, oh my God, it's so like all-star start, not all-star started, but talent out the absolute wazoo with the Houston Rockets. So, amen, but he profiles as such an amazing NBA fantasy player. So, yeah, that's why we would be looking there. Denny Avdi is a very, very interesting one, though, as well. He could be way higher than this if Jeremy Grant pisses off. If he gets that starting spot, we saw what he did last year in Washington. He was phenomenal when he had the ball in his hands, and that was without a capability. Yeah. Now we've got him with Scoot Henderson. Yeah, he can definitely rise up there because he can do a little bit of it all with Denny Avdia. So, guys, just to keep your eyes out there for. And then Herb Jones, obviously, he's the punt points guy, high steals, very, very low turnovers, but also it can be detrimental to him. But, mate, if again, as we said with Trey Murphy, if Brandon Ingram goes, Herb Jones, I still feel like Herb Jones is going to get a lot of minutes as well with CJ McCollum going to the bench because they're going to need defense. Herb Jones is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA.
Yeah, well, he might be on the center tier next time we look at him. We'll see. But I mean, the one thing that, if you go back to that list, the one thing that links everybody here together is the fact that they're kind of one starter away from having a big blow up, either because we've seen them do it before or we just know that's what they've got. Like you take someone like Amen, and he's probably in a better position than most of the guys on that list because he can play so many different positions. Correct. Where if somebody goes down, they can shuffle whoever they've got on there, and he can just kind of click into the puzzle piece for their coaching staff. Whereas a few of them are a little bit more limited in where they can play. So it would take a specific injury for them to maybe see more court time. I know it doesn't exactly work like small forward goes down, small forward comes in. Yeah. But, you know, I think that's an easy way to think about it anyway. So, but yeah, these guys are just all they're in positions, again, like Amen Thompson, where unfortunately he's just on such a good team that he's got to wait his turn kind of thing. So,
Yep. Same as the Pelicans guys as well. It's just how it's going to be, unfortunately. So, bloody close, but they're the guys to definitely keep your eye on. And let's go for a couple of flyers, Malley, right at the very end of your drafts that you can have a crack on here. They're in the small forwards because, as we have noticed, you do actually get to this stage around about the I think it's around the 130 or 140 mark, and you could be without a small forward. And these are the guys that we think that you could target to be able to have a crack with. Aaron Naismith, obviously, starting in Indiana. DeAndre Hunter starting in Atlanta. If he is held, we know how bad he is at NBA fantasy. Tari Eason could be very good, but again, he's behind Jabari Smith Jr. and Dylan Brooks. Buddy Hield is a very interesting one. That could be a lot of threes there for Golden State. He could still see a lot of increased minutes. Zachary Ricochet as well in Atlanta. We know he's behind Hunter at the moment, but hey, he's shown a bit preseason. I'll give him that 100%. He's definitely showing a bit of an all-round game, which is very, very good to see. Can he overtake DeAndre Hunter? Maybe not. I don't think with Dyson Daniels also coming into that one. But I think my main one that I'm really starting to target now, Malley, that is the hottest man in the NBA himself. That is right. That is Kelly Oubre Jr. And let me just say this. He's starting in Philadelphia. He loves shooting. We saw what happens when he started in Charlotte. He'd take a lot of shots. He was a 20-point-per-game scorer. He can get rebounds. He can get a couple of defensive stats. He's a very good steals guy, which people are underrated for him. So he can be a very good source of steals. He hits threes. Yes, he might hurt percentage-wise, and he tries to do a little bit too much. But if Embiid, George are out, he works well with Maxey. His numbers are actually okay with Tyrese Maxey. Hey, there's a little something going on there for Kelly Oubre Jr. in your last shot.
Yeah, definitely. Roll me back to that list. There was someone there that I needed to talk about.
Talk to me.
Aaron Naismith. He's a guy who's who seems to get a lot of love in fantasy because he doesn't get turnovers. And then I thought, I wanted to have a little bit more of a look at him. And in Carmel's Ball League competition this year, personal fouls are actually a category. So I thought I might want to look at this because now it's a category, a little bit like turnovers. you want to ignore it, but you can't. And he was top 10. I think he was
Oh,
even top
okay.
5. Like, yeah, he loves a foul, apparently. I've
Oh,
got the
he was.
list
Oh, he was
here.
one of the worst foulers.
Worst. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh
even though he
shit.
doesn't turn the ball over, according to what side am I on? Team rankings here. So this is
Yeah.
the list. An obvious one to start with is Jaron Jackson Jr.
Ah,
Like,
yes, yes.
again, big blocks guys are just going to get a lot of fouls.
Dan
Number
Gaff-
2, Aaron
Dan Gafford
Neesmith.
would be up there, wouldn't they?
What's that, sorry?
Dan Gafford would surely be up there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, I'll read you through just the top few because I just found this interesting, especially now it's a category for me
Yeah.
and I guess a group of our listeners.
Yep.
Triple J, Aaron Neesmith. We got Yusuf Nurkic, Alperen
Oh, yeah.
Şengün, Dylan Brooks, Carl Anthony Towns, Rudy makes sense, Jalen Duran makes sense, Scoot Henderson.
Really?
That one was kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, he got attacked a lot because he was undersized.
Same with rounding out the top 10 as Poole. People go at him and he just does a lot of slapping. So he's at 3.3 here. Jaden McDaniel, Devin Booker, Jaden McDaniels, Demonis Sabonis, Dort, Herb Jones, Zach Collins, Grant Williams, Kelly Oubre Jr., who we're just talking about, Miles Turner, and Kelly Olynyk rounds out the top 3. But yeah, just to see him there, second on the list,
Yeah.
Aaron Neesmith.
Very
Indiana
interesting.
Pacers.
There you go. Yeah, can't believe that. But if you were having your last flyer pick here, would you choose Aaron Neesmith? Would you choose Kelly Oubre Jr., or would you choose one of these other guys? Like, I think personally, if I took a flyer in like the round or two beforehand and I wanted a bit of stability in my draft, I would be finishing with Kelly Oubre Jr. pretty much every single time. If I had already gone a bit more safe earlier, then I would be going something along the lines of maybe Ricochet or Buddy Hield, probably, just to have a bit more of a crack.
Yeah, I think Tari Eason and Ricochet are the best players on that list.
Agreed.
So I think they'll have the best futures out of the group there. Buddy Hield, it's so hard to tell what's going to happen for them at the moment. He's just such a good specialist. So, yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't end up getting drafted in your league, you're going to pull him in at some point because you're going to need threes and he's going to be there. Aaron Neesmith, I don't know. I'm not really that interested in him. I guess he's got a role as well, but and maybe what he does is valuable to the Pacers.
Let's just say this as well about Aaron Neesmith. Aaron Neesmith was 110 per game last season, right? Where he made his most bread and butter, and this is because of the high-paced Indiana offense and their willingness to try and play defense. 0.9 steals, 0.7 blocks, almost 500 from the field. His free throw percentage was 78, so that could come up. 2 threes a game, only 12 points, 4 rebounds in only 27 minutes a night. So he was serviceable from that position. But when we look at Neesmith in the there was a certain part of I think it was December or something like that. It was top 70 because he was averaging about 17 points per game. So it doesn't take that much for him to be able to come up that much.
Again, he might be a little bit capped because of his situation. And he's another guy, apparently, outside of personal fouls, who doesn't really hurt you anywhere. So sometimes it's good to take a guy like that, especially if you built your team up early and you've got a lot of point guards and you've got a lot of centers, but you need a small forward and you're like, damn, I need a back. He might be a nice guy to put in there. He's not good. Sometimes you get these last round pick kind of guys and you're like, oh, on a week that I need steals, this guy's going to be so good. Or on a week that I'm so close in threes, this guy's going to be ultimate value. But then there's other times where you roll them out there too and you're like, well, there goes my field goal percentage. Well, there goes my turnovers. Whatever it is, probably not turnovers at that part of the draft, but you know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes quite nice to have a safe dude at the end there just to bring you home when you need them. And maybe that's why he's your second last pick, depending how deep your league is. Second last pick, and then you go a bit more of a fly, but you see how they go. I'm the kind of guy that I didn't even draft with the last player in my lineup in mind. I know that they're not going to last. Or if they do well, but that just means they move up one and the guy that I took the round before them goes, I'm using every one of my waiver acquisitions each week. I think you see by the end, you look at my team, that it'd be very rare that I've had a week where I haven't used every single pickup maximise my chance of winning.
100%. I'm the exact same as you, and that's why my last pick, or second, now it's second last pick because everyone's fucking catching on to me. But it's always Jaden McDaniels. That's my guy that I'm always going with. I'd have him in F tier as well here because we know that he plays on that first game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Malley, that's going to do us, mate. We've gone through all these tiers now. If you guys do want to go back and have a little bit more of a check, you can go back and have a look at our point guard tiers and our shooting guard tiers on the Inside Fantasy Sports Network on YouTube. Follow me at Skiddy IFS on X or whatnot. Follow Malley at live_my_fantasy. You can check out his stuff. Always an absolute ripper one. I love when your notifications come up, mate. It's just another great day. Ladies and gentlemen, we only have 5 days, I think, 6 days, something like that, until the NBA season starts up, and we are ready. Make sure you get into our Discord or Patreon or all that good stuff. We'll help you through it. If you have any questions, you can DM me or Malley. We're here to help you win your leagues. We're not in them, so who gives a shit? We may as well help you. Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you in the next one.